So one of the bigger surprises in recent memory when it comes to announcements was the Strangers getting a reboot, and that reboot would be in the form of a shot back-to-back trilogy. Of all the horror franchises, to get an announcement for a trilogy off the story that we know, this was definitely like at the bottom of the list for me of things I would ever expect. So that was shocking. And having heard that, I was like, okay, they must have something to say. Like, they must have something really big planned for them to not only feel like it's warranted, but also to have the faith in it, to put the money into it. Because something like this, you really got to have faith in something like this, right? Like when they made The Lord of the Rings and they shot them back to back to back, New Line was really banking on it. And of course, obviously that worked out, but it's a huge risk.
Yeah.
And so when they announced this, I was like, okay. And Rennie Harlan was brought on to direct. And he's a director that I'm very, I don't know if I've ever been hot on him, but he's somebody that makes either pretty good films or a lot of right? So I was just like, Rennie Harlan, okay, he's an older director. He hasn't made anything good in a while. So I was really just kind of taken aback by this decision. And so Strangers Chapter 1, here we go. Not to beat around the bush too much. I'm going to definitely let you go first. So for context here, I have seen the other two. Kaylee has not seen either. So she's going into this one cold, having no previous knowledge of the past films. So you're going to get a clean take from her, someone who's new to it, and you're going to get a different take from somebody who has seen the other ones.
I hated this movie.
And that's Kaylee. Kaylee, how often do you hate a movie? That I almost feel like you never say that.
There's definitely been some this year that I'm like, oh, they sucked. They were so dumb and I hate them. But it's pretty rare. I definitely like to try and find, things that I like even in the worst movies, because making movies is hard, and,
Sure.
I want to respect people's attempts, but I just really was not into this one at all. I found it to be boring. I didn't feel like there was any tension or suspense, and I felt like they were really trying to, but everything was really cliche. All of the tension just did not build for me. There's a lot of stingers and very obvious somebody's behind somebody else, and I just thought that was all really, really lame. And then probably the biggest thing is that I really hated the two protagonists. I didn't like their acting. I didn't like them together. I felt like they had no chemistry. So I wasn't even bought into the romance aspect of a couple that's being besieged by people trying to invade their home. I was so detached from it, and so I'll stop there, but I thought it was really lame. I think that, if you're a fan of the original, it's probably better, so I wouldn't recommend seeing this, but that's from somebody who hasn't seen the original. The only thing that I will say that's good are the masks, but those are from the original, so those aren't anything new, but they are cool masks, and I do like them. But yeah, I think there's a lot to talk about when we do our spoiler section, but
oh, not that much. So I think that one of the main reasons why this film doesn't work, and why I found it to be so forgettable and uninteresting, and let's just say it, we're both uninterested in seeing where this goes, which, oh man, with your first film, imagine, when Frodo and Sam are going off, and Sam leaves, and he's like, I'm glad you're with me, Sam, and they walk over the hill and they get the stinger and the tease for Two Towers, and you're just like, I don't give a shit.
Oh my god.
That would be so devastating.
That would be horrible
to them, and that's where we're at, because here's the problem. You're taking a pre-established franchise. It's not even really a franchise. It's just two films. But that could be an argument one way or the other. Some people think a franchise is anything over one. Other people are like, it's some arbitrary number. But the big problem here for me with this is that you're just remaking the first film, essentially, doing an inferior job, throwing in a couple, like, kind of nods to the second one, very mild ones. But the original is only, like, what is it, 2008?
Yeah, it's
this
not
movie's
that
not
old.
even 20 years old. People know the first movie, right? So you're already remaking a movie in less than 20 years that's kind of a classic to a lot of people. I'm personally not a huge fan of the first one. I like it fine. But this one is inferior, but not only because I just don't like this film that much, but because I've already seen a better version of it. And when you're going to sit down to make something like this, to turn it into a trilogy, to make it not only so similar to the first one, but also to only have two characters, with the audience walking into this with it saying chapter 1 finishing with to be continued, everyone kind of knows the gimmick. It's like, it's called chapter 1. They wouldn't call it that unless there was going to be planned more. Even people who don't follow film can see chapter 1 put on the screen and they're like, okay, so there's going to be more of them. And when you only have two characters, it's like, this is the throw mama from the train scene. The guy in the hat killed the other guy in the hat. It's like there's no tension to it.
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's like, you know that at least one of them is going to survive. So there's like no tension to it. Especially if you've seen the first movie and you kind of already know how this plays out. It makes it for a very uninteresting watch. And like you said, our main characters, there's no chemistry.
None.
Their decision making is whatever. It's not like I want to punch the screen. It's not like I'm rooting and being like, hell yeah. It's kind of just like, okay, whatever. So that's just how I felt. I felt so unengaged.
Yes.
I just kind of sat there and I actually started to doze off a couple times because I was just like, I felt zero tension of any sort.
It was so not tense, and our audience had a totally different reaction than we did.
Oh
like,
God, we almost fell over when it ended.
They applauded.
Yeah, the
They
whole
clapped.
theater like erupted into claps, and we were like, "What the fuck?"
There was a good amount of people there. Yeah,
Yeah.
I did not see that at all. I don't know if this is the kind of film.
No, because it's a horror movie, and it
Yeah.
was a full theater, and I didn't hear a single scream, a single like. Nothing. And then when it ends, everyone's clapping like they just watched the best horror movie ever. And I was like, what? Was this an ironic
weird.
clap?
I couldn't tell if these are like they're just strangers fans. So it's like they were going to clap no matter what. Or maybe this is the kind of movie that like non-horror like watchers it appeals to in some way because they haven't seen all of the cliches and like,
oh my God,
I don't know. I really was baffled by that.
This is cliche the movie.
It is.
That's literally what this should have been called.
So lame. There's some setup in the beginning with like this town, and I hated everything with that.
That's gonna play into 2 and 3, obviously.
Of course, but I just found it so like dull, and there's an element that's used in this that I also was very annoyed by. It's like a character needs a particular item medically, and I hated that inclusion because I found it to be just pointless, honestly. It was again a tension building device that did not build tension in any way.
Yeah.
So, and the guy in this, I think I hated him the most, to be honest, because I'm sorry, but like I didn't buy any of his emotions. There's a few times like when he's supposed to be freaking out and upset, and it's like he would cry for like half a second, like fake tears, and then he'd be like fine, and I was just like, what? That doesn't make any sense. I don't get it. Like that's not how you would be reacting in this.
Even
and
the climatic scene between, them, the emotion that they give both of them, I was just kind of like not buying it.
It fell so flat.
Yeah.
So flat. Yeah, I didn't buy anything.
And there's like this
with
emotional
them.
moment.
Oh my god, it was
and
so
I was like
stupid.
literally rolled my eyes at it.
So stupid. Yeah, this was really awful. This is definitely for me one of the worst films this year. I really hated it. Like, I have no interest. I know you said it too, but like, I really don't. Like, we might. I don't know. We probably will see the next one just to review it
for the channel.
But this is bad, guys. This is bad.
Yeah, I mean, if you're a big fan of The Strangers and you like loved the first movie,
yeah.
I don't see why you would like this. Just because it's the original's so modern that it doesn't like the point of a remake for a lot of people is to either update the look, the aesthetic to make it for the modern age, because like the 70s had different hair and different clothes and different technology and different lingo and all that kind of shit.
The 2008 is...
But this one, the first one doesn't feel any different than this one.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it just... You could have put out the original one today, and it would just be like, oh, the phone technology looks a little dated,
right?
Or
that's
something.
Like the only
and that's
major
like it.
Difference.
There's like nothing else in that film that really screams dated. So this is just such a weird thing, because I remember when this was announced, I started coming up with all these, ideas, and I'm actually shocked that they went the route of just remaking the first film as the first chapter. That is fucking crazy to me.
Yeah.
Because it's like, if you got a trilogy here, you have more killers than you have characters. Mm-hmm. Like, what? For a trilogy? That's crazy. This movie should have had 7, 8 characters.
Yeah.
That like all went... You don't have to follow the first film.
Right.
You don't have to follow the second film.
Right.
You have a whole new trilogy. You can make it even part 3, 4, and 5. Why even remake the first when it's already kind of a classic?
Yeah.
And you just go to make it an inferior version that leaves on a cliffhanger. I know the first one kind of leaves on a cliffhanger to a degree, and you want to see the resolution of that. And this movie kind of gives that to you. But I would rather just see a part 2. Mm. Right? Bring back the character. Like, I don't know. It baffles my mind, because when I remember when this originally got announced, I started coming up with all these theories of like, well, there's 3 movies, there's 3 killers. Maybe we're going to see things from the perspective of each killer per film, and we're going to get little backstories to each killer per film. And the first one was going to be like, what, I forget their names, each one of them, like Dollface and whatever the fuck they are.
Baghead.
It's something like that. Whatever their names are. Like, I thought that we were going to get like a movie that kind of followed each one of them. This movie takes, beyond 0 risks. Yeah. This adds nothing interesting that you're like, oh shit, I didn't see that coming. Like, how's that going to play out in the next movie? Wow, that really entices me in a way where I'm like going to be thinking about how this is going to be resolved or how this is going to continue or anything. And it's like, where this movie leaves off, you're just kind of like I know exactly. I literally called every single scene, every single second. And I feel like I could have done that with having seen the first one or without.
Oh, yeah. I found that everything was super predictable. And that's always disappointing with, especially a horror movie, because it's like, when you go into a horror movie, you either want to be terrified at the end of it, or at the very least, you want to have been entertained.
Yeah.
So, like, if it's a really bad movie, but it's funny and it's badness, that's at least entertaining. Or, obviously there's horror comedies and all different kinds of horror movies that don't necessarily terrify you.
Yeah.
But this was, boring is really just the best descriptor. Boring and predictable.
Yeah.
So I am definitely shocked at the fact that there's like going to be 3 films. I really have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know where they're going from here. And we'll get into it in our spoiler discussion, which, I think we should just jump over to now. So it's obviously not a recommendation. if you're like a big Strangers fan, I'm sure you already saw it tonight, and you can jump over. I don't know why you're watching this one. I would think you would just watch the spoiler discussion. But if you're like on the fence and you're like, I'm a big Strangers fan, I think I want to kind of see something new. Did they bring anything unique or original to the table for this franchise? Not yet. Maybe in the second film they're going to throw us for a loop. But dude, if you gave me this screenplay and made me sign off on it, there'd be no fucking way. I would be like, oh, absolutely not. We gotta alter this. Like, not even alter it. We need to completely redo whatever you got going on here. And it's like, commit to one good film. Right? Like, I think they bit off more than they could chew. They tried to freaking run before they could walk. It's just one of these, like, it's gonna be a failure. No one's gonna want to see the next one. There will be fans. There always is. Of course. But the word on the street, from everyone I know, from all the people I've talked to who have seen it, everyone that has reported back with their opinion has hated it.
Yeah. I'm not surprised by that.
So it has a ridiculously low score on like Rotten Tomatoes. I don't give a shit about any of that, like Rotten Tomatoes and everything, but I'm just saying, in addition, right, to all those other things, it's not getting loved anywhere.
Yeah.
And it's like, you got 2 other films. There's a reason they didn't do a press screening for this. Yeah. I kind of figured that's what it was, because they kept sending us out promotional material to promote this, but then they didn't give us a press screening, which is bizarre to say the least. If you follow my Instagram, you know I've been posting about this film because they asked me to, and I was like, okay, I'll do this for you, a little quid pro quo, and nope. I was like, you're really not going to do a screening? I was like, that is,
yeah.
Ooh, man, that's shady. That's scary. And it's exactly what I expected from that. So, I hate that. Boo. All right, we're going to record the spoiler discussion. So, if you saw it and you want to come on over there, join us there. All right, we'll see you.
Bye. Bye.